The massive view screen aboard the Concordat vessel, light of dawn, showed nothing but the endless black of space, dotted with distant stars. Fleet Commander Reed stood with his hands clasped behind his back, his tall frame casting a long shadow across the polished floor of the command deck. His golden eyes, typical of his species, scanned the readings that floated in the air around him. Something was wrong. The patrol had been routine until moments ago, when their sensors picked up an unknown energy signature at the edge of their space. Reed's antenna twitched, a sign of both curiosity and concern that his bridge crew knew well. "Report," he ordered, his voice carrying across the silent bridge. Officer Marcus, the youngest of his crew, worked quickly at his station. "Unknown vessel, sir. It doesn't match any known configurations in our database." The officer's fingers danced across the holographic controls. "Their power readings are odd. They're using some form of primitive reactor technology we haven't seen in centuries." Reed moved closer to the main display as the computer generated an image of the approaching ship. It was ugly by Concordat standards, all sharp angles and exposed metal, without the flowing, organic lines that marked proper spacecraft design. It looked like something cobbled together by a child playing with building blocks. "Primitive indeed," Reed muttered. "Weapons status. They appear to be armed, sir, but nothing our shields couldn't handle. Their weapons seem to be based on basic particle acceleration technology." The bridge crew exchanged knowing looks. The stellar Concordat had moved beyond such simple weapons generations ago. Their ships now carried quantum disruption beams and gravity lenses. This vessel, whatever it was, posed no real threat. "Sir," Officer Marcus called out, his voice carrying a note of confusion. "The vessel is advancing directly toward our position. Their course is perfect, too perfect for their apparent level of technology." Reed felt a slight chill run down his spine. In his 300 years of service to the Concordat, he had learned that perfection often hid danger. "Send the standard warning. All languages, all frequencies." The message went out, a demand for identification and proof of peaceful intent, backed by the implied threat of the Concordat's superior firepower. The response came almost immediately. "This is Captain Thompson of the Earth vessel Star Wanderer. We receive you clearly, Concordat vessel. Request permission to approach and establish diplomatic contact." The bridge fell silent. Earth. The word was unknown to them, yet these beings spoke their language perfectly. More disturbing was their knowledge of the Concordat, knowledge they shouldn't have. "Scan their whole composition," Reed ordered suddenly, following a hunch. The results made him straighten up. The ship's hull was made of common metals, yes, but its atomic structure had been altered at a quantum level. It was far more resilient than it appeared. And those primitive reactor readings, they were steady, too steady. "Sir," another officer called out, "we're detecting multiple small objects moving with the vessel. They're probes, sir. Dozens of them. Our sensors barely picked them up." Reed's mind raced. This unknown species had managed to reach the heart of Concordat space undetected. Their ship, despite its crude appearance, showed signs of technology that might even surpass their own in some areas. And they had been watching, studying, learning, all while remaining hidden. "Open a channel," Reed commanded. When the communication line was established, he spoke with careful precision. "Captain Thompson, this is Fleet Commander Reed. Your presence here is unexpected, as is your knowledge of our civilization." The response came with what Reed could have sworn was a hint of amusement. "Commander Reed, humanity believes in being well prepared for first contact scenarios. We've been studying your civilization for some time. We chose today to reveal ourselves because we believe the Concordat is ready for direct diplomatic relations with Earth." Reed noticed that the human captain didn't mention how they had managed to study the Concordat undetected, nor did they apologize for the surveillance. They simply stated it as fact. It was either remarkable confidence or remarkable foolishness. Reed wasn't sure which worried him more. The Concordat does not typically establish relations with. He paused, searching for a diplomatic word. Developing civilizations. Commander, Thompson replied, I respectfully suggest you might want to reconsider your definition of developing. Shall we discuss this further? We bring greetings from Earth and a proposal that might interest the Concordat greatly. The intelligence center of the Light of Dawn hummed with activity as analysts pored over the data streaming in about humanity. Reed stood in the center of the room, watching as images and information filled the curved screens surrounding him. Each new piece of information about Earth made him more uneasy. They call their homeworld a death world, one analyst reported, her voice filled with disbelief. The gravity is 1.3 times our standard. The atmosphere contains corrosive oxygen. They have regular natural disasters, storms, earthquakes, volcanic eruptions. And they not only survived there, they thrived. Reed watched footage from Earth's history, humans building cities in deserts, on mountaintops, in frozen wastelands, humans diving into deep oceans and climbing the highest peaks, humans launching into space using nothing but controlled explosions. It was both primitive and impressive. Show me their military history, Reed ordered. The screens filled with battles, so many battles. While the Concordat had enjoyed 10,000 years of peace, humans had fought countless wars. They had gone from fighting with sharpened metal to splitting atoms in less than 300 years. The pace of their advancement was frightening. Sir, a senior analyst called out, you need to see this. He pulled up an image of different human weapons through time. Look at their development path. Most species, including us, develop energy weapons first, then move to more advanced technology. Humans went the opposite way. They perfected kinetic weapons first. They learned to kill with physics before they mastered energy manipulation. Reed understood the implications. It meant humans thought differently. They saw solutions that other species might miss. Their primitive technology wasn't primitive at all. It was just developed along a completely different path. The door slid open, and Admiral White entered the room. She was one of the oldest members of the Concordat fleet, her silver skin showing the subtle patterns that came with age. Report, she commanded. Reed straightened. The humans are concerning. Admiral, they've developed in isolation, with no contact from other species. Everything they have, they built themselves. Their technology is different from anything we've seen. Different doesn't mean better, White said, but her tone suggested she wasn't convinced of her own words. They reached our space undetected, Reed countered. Their ship's design tells me they understand deception. They've been watching us, learning about us, while we knew nothing about them. And now they choose to reveal themselves. Why? The Admiral moved to the central display, studying the image of the Star Wanderer. Your recommendation? Reed took a deep breath. We have two options. We either eliminate them as a potential threat now, while we might still have a technological advantage. He paused, letting the words hang in the air. Or, White prompted, or we accept their offer of diplomatic relations and hope they're telling the truth about wanting peace. But Admiral, if we choose wrong. White raised her hand, cutting him off. Show me more about their history, not their wars. Show me what they do between their wars. The screens changed. Now they showed humans helping each other after disasters. Humans giving food to their enemies. Humans risking their lives to save strangers. Humans sending messages of peace into space even before they could travel there themselves. Fascinating, White murmured. They're capable of both great violence and great compassion. Their technology is both simple and complex. Their ship looks weak but hides strength. She turned to Reed. You see the pattern. Reed nodded slowly. Duality. Everything about them contains opposing truths, which means we can't judge them by any single aspect, White concluded. The question isn't whether they're peaceful or dangerous. They're clearly both. The question is which aspect of their nature they'll show to us. The Admiral straightened, her decision made. Prepare for diplomatic contact. But, she added, her eyes hard, keep our weapons charged. If the humans want to dance, we'll dance, but we'll do it our way. As the Admiral left, Reed turned back to the screens. A new image had appeared. An ancient human painting of two faces, one smiling, one serious, sharing a single head. Perhaps, he thought, the humans had been trying to warn them about their dual nature all along. The diplomatic meeting was set to begin in 3 hours. 6 Concordat ships now surrounded the Star Wanderer, maintaining what they considered a safe distance. On the bridge of the Light of Dawn, Reed watched the human vessel with growing unease. Something about its apparent vulnerability bothered him. That's when Commander Bold made his move. His ship, the Swift Justice, broke formation without warning. Bold had always been aggressive, always looking for glory, but this was beyond reckless. Bold, stand down immediately, Reed ordered over the command channel. That's a direct order. They're a threat, Bold replied, his voice heavy with conviction. You've all seen the reports. They're warlike, unpredictable. Better to eliminate them now than wait for them to strike first. The Swift Justice powered up its main weapons. Reed watched in horror as the quantum disruption beam, a weapon that could tear apart matter at the subatomic level, lanced out toward the Star Wanderer. What happened next would be studied in Concordat military academies for generations. The human ship didn't try to dodge. Instead, just as the beam was about to hit, the primitive hull of the Star Wanderer seemed to ripple. The quantum beam struck the ship and simply disappeared. No explosion, no damage, nothing. Impossible, someone whispered on the bridge. Reed agreed. Their quantum weapons were supposed to be unstoppable. No known defense existed. Captain Thompson's voice came over the general channel, calm as ever. Commander Bold, I believe that qualifies as an act of war. Would you like to reconsider your actions? Bold responded by firing again. And again. Each shot was absorbed by the strange rippling effect around the human ship. The Star Wanderer hadn't even moved from its position. Very well, Thompson said. The human ship finally began to move. What followed was a display of maneuvering that defied physics as the Concordat understood it. The Star Wanderer seemed to bend space around itself, moving in ways that should have turned any crew to paste. It circled the Swift Justice so fast it appeared to be in multiple places at once. Reed's tactical officer shouted in alarm. Sir, the human ship's power readings just jumped off our scales. They're showing more power than our entire fleet combined. How were they hiding that? A new weapon emerged from the Star Wanderer's hull, a simple-looking cannon that Reed's sensors identified as a basic coil gun. Except this one had been modified in ways their sensors couldn't understand. The human ship fired once. A single shot. The projectile, moving at what Reed's instruments claimed was physically impossible speed, struck the Swift Justice's engines. Instead of exploding, the round simply passed through the ship's shields like they weren't there. The Swift Justice's engines died instantly. As you can see, Thompson's voice came again. We could have done that at any time. Your shields are excellent against energy weapons, Commander Bold. But they never learned to stop something as primitive as a physical round moving at relativistic speed. The Star Wanderer returned to its original position, as if nothing had happened. The entire incident had taken less than 2 minutes. Admiral White's voice cut through the stunned silence. Captain Thompson, you have our sincere apologies for Commander Bold's actions. I trust you understand he was acting without authorization. Of course. Admiral, Thompson replied graciously. No harm done. Though I suggest you update your tactical databases. Humanity hasn't used simple coil guns in decades. What you just saw was our version of a quantum tunnel driver. We just made it look like a coil gun because, well, old habits die hard. Reed finally understood. The humans hadn't just hidden their true capabilities. They had deliberately made their technology look outdated. Every primitive system on their ship was actually an advanced weapon or defense system in disguise. If I may suggest, Thompson continued, "We should proceed with our diplomatic meeting as planned. We have so much to discuss. For instance, we'd be happy to help you develop defenses against kinetic weapons. In exchange, perhaps you could tell us more about your fascinating quantum communication systems." Reed looked at the Swift Justice, now being towed back to the fleet, then at the Star Wanderer, still looking deceptively simple and vulnerable. He had a feeling the Concordat's definition of advanced technology was about to change dramatically. 2 days after the incident with Commander Bold, the Concordat High Council made their decision. Reed watched from the bridge of the Light of Dawn as hundreds of Concordat warships emerged from hyperspace, their sleek forms filling the viewport. The show of force was impressive, nearly a third of the Concordat's entire battle fleet. "The humans have 1 hour to surrender their vessel and submit to our authority," the Council's message stated. Their deception cannot be tolerated. Reed felt his stomach tighten. The Council hadn't witnessed what he had seen. They didn't understand what they were dealing with. "Admiral White," he called over the command channel, "this is a mistake." "I agree," White replied, her voice tight. "But the Council believes overwhelming force will make the humans reveal their true fleet strength. They want to know what we're really dealing with." The Star Wanderer hung in space, still alone, still appearing harmless. Captain Thompson's response to the Concordat's demands was simple. "Look up." Every sensor officer in the fleet shouted at once. Above the Concordat Armada, space itself seemed to shimmer. Like a veil being lifted, hundreds of human ships appeared. They had been there the entire time, hidden by technology that made the Concordat's best stealth systems look like child's toys. The human ships were all different. Some were massive, bulky things that looked like flying fortresses. Others were sleek and sharp, barely visible even after dropping their stealth. A few were completely alien in design, as if humans had simply decided to ignore all conventional rules of spacecraft construction. "This is Admiral Jones of the Earth Defense Fleet," a new voice announced across all channels. "We appreciate the Concordat's desire to demonstrate their strength. Allow us to respond in kind." More ships appeared, below the fleet, behind it, even within it. Human vessels had somehow been hiding between Concordat ships the entire time. The Concordat fleet was completely surrounded. "As you can see," Thompson's voice joined in, "we didn't come unprepared. The Star Wanderer isn't alone. It never was. We've been watching your civilization for decades, carefully evaluating whether you were ready for contact. Today's display of force answers that question, though perhaps not in the way your council intended." The sensor readings from the human fleet made Reed's head spin. Each ship seemed to use different technology. Some had energy readings that made no sense. Others showed no energy readings at all, yet clearly had power. It was as if humans had developed a dozen different paths to the same goals, then decided to use all of them at once. "Sir," Reed's tactical officer called out, "the human ships, they're all different, but look at their positions. This isn't random. There," he paused, bringing up a tactical display. "They're in a defense formation. They've positioned themselves to protect our fleet." Reed studied the display. The officer was right. The human ships weren't arranged for attack. They had taken up positions that would let them intercept threats from any direction. They were protecting the very fleet that had come to intimidate them. Thompson's voice came again. "We came in peace, but we came prepared. Humanity learned long ago that the best way to ensure peaceful relations is to be ready for war while sincerely hoping to never fight one. We don't want to be your enemies. We'd much rather be your allies." Admiral White's response was immediate. "Stand down all weapons, open a channel to the High Council, and someone find me everything we have on human diplomatic protocols." Later, in a private channel, White spoke to Reed. "You know what truly frightens me. This isn't their main fleet. These ships, as advanced as they are, were just their diplomatic escort. They're the ships they considered appropriate for first contact." Reed watched as the human ships maintained their protective formation around the Concordat fleet. Each one was a testament to humanity's unique approach to technology and space travel. Each one represented a different solution to the same problems the Concordat had faced. "Admiral," he said slowly, "I don't think we need to be frightened. I think we need to be grateful." "Oh, why's that?" "Because they chose to be our friends instead of our enemies. And I have a feeling we're going to need friends like them very soon." In the massive analysis chamber aboard the Light of Dawn, holographic displays showed the inner workings of human technology. Reed stood with the Concordat's top scientists as they tried to understand what made humans so different. The room was filled with frustrated voices and confused discussions. "It makes no sense," muttered lead researcher Bright, his fingers moving through the hologram of a human engine. "They achieved faster than light travel without using quantum tunneling. They don't even use standard power cores. Each ship in their fleet uses different technology to achieve the same goal." Reed watched as more scans appeared on the screens. The humans had allowed basic scans of their fleet as a show of good faith. What those scans revealed had turned the Concordat scientific community upside down. "Look at this," called another researcher. "Their smallest ships use something they call gravity folding for propulsion. The medium ships use quantum displacement. The large ones use space compression. It's like they developed three completely different ways to solve the same problem, then decided to keep using all of them." Admiral White entered the chamber, followed by a human scientist. The human was shorter than the Concordat members, but moved with a confidence that made everyone pause. He smiled at the displays. "I see you're trying to make sense of our methods," the human said. "I'm Dr. Wells. Perhaps I can explain why everything looks so chaotic to you." He walked to the central display and brought up an image of Earth. "The key to understanding human technology is understanding how we developed it. You see, every other advanced species we've studied followed a similar path. They found ancient artifacts, reverse-engineered them, and built upon that foundation. This created let's call it a technological consensus." Wells gestured at the Concordat ships visible through the chamber's window. "Your ships are all based on the same principles because you all started from the same point. Your quantum technology came from studying the ruins of the ancient ones. Your power systems are all derivatives of their designs. But humans," Reed said slowly, beginning to understand, "you didn't find any artifacts." "Exactly," Wells grinned. "We developed everything from scratch. When we faced a problem, we had to solve it ourselves. No hints, no guidelines, no ancient technology to study, just human ingenuity and the scientific method." He brought up displays of different human ships. Each of these represents a different approach to space travel. Some teams of scientists said, "Let's bend space." Others said, "Let's slip between dimensions." Still others said, "Let's compress space in front of us." They all worked, just in different ways. And since they all worked, we kept them all. The chamber was silent as the implications sank in. The humans hadn't just developed their own technology. They had developed multiple branches of technology simultaneously. Each branch represented a completely different way of thinking about the same problems. "But surely," Bright argued, "some methods must be better than others. Why not standardize on the best approach?" Wells shook his head. "Who decides what's best? Each method has its advantages. Space compression drives use less power. Gravity folding is more stable. Quantum displacement is faster. By keeping all of them, we have options, flexibility, and redundancy." "And weapons?" White asked quietly. "Same principle. We never found ancient weapons to copy, so we made our own. Lots of them, lots of different types. Energy weapons, kinetic weapons, gravity weapons, dimensional weapons. Each works differently, which means each has different strengths and weaknesses. And yes, different ways to defend against them." Reed thought about the implications for war. An enemy facing human ships would never know what kind of weapons or defenses they were facing. Each ship could be completely different from the last. There's an old human saying, Wells continued. Necessity is the mother of invention. We needed to reach the stars, so we invented ways to do it. All the ways we could think of. We needed to defend ourselves, so we developed every type of weapon and defense we could imagine. Being alone in space taught us to be thorough, to be innovative, and most importantly, to never stop looking for new solutions. He turned to face the assembled Concordat members. That's why we're here now. Not to show off, but to share. You have technologies we've never imagined. We have technologies you've never considered. Together. He smiled again. Together, we could develop entirely new branches of science. The attack came without warning. Reality itself seemed to tear open as massive ships emerged from holes in space. They were geometric perfection, perfect cubes and spheres that seemed to absorb light rather than reflect it. The machine collective had arrived. Multiple hostile contacts. Reed's tactical officer shouted. Energy readings are off the charts. They're charging weapons. The collective was feared throughout known space. They were ancient, powerful, and utterly without mercy. They consumed civilizations, turning living beings into components for their ever-growing fleet. Now they had found both the Concordat and human fleets in one place. The first shot from the collective ships destroyed 3 Concordat vessels instantly. Their quantum shields, the pride of Concordat technology, might as well have been paper. The second shot was aimed at the Star Wanderer, but the humans were already moving. The Star Wanderer's primitive hull rippled, and the deadly energy beams split around it like water around a rock. Captain Thompson's voice cut through the chaos of battle. All ships, implement pattern echo. Concordat vessels, follow our lead. The human fleet exploded into action. Their ships moved in ways that seemed random at first, but Reed quickly saw the pattern. Each ship was positioning itself based on its specific technology. Ships with gravity drives created distortion fields that confused the collective's targeting. Vessels with quantum engines generated interference patterns that disrupted the enemy sensors. Concordat fleet, Thompson called out, your quantum weapons are effective, but your targeting can't penetrate their defenses. We'll create openings. You hit them when we tell you. Admiral White didn't hesitate. All ships follow the humans' lead. This is their game now. What followed was unlike any battle in Concordat history. Human ships with kinetic weapons fired first, their relativistic rounds creating microscopic holes in the collective's perfect geometrical shields. Then came human gravity weapons, widening those holes. Finally, they called out coordinates, and Concordat ships fired their quantum beams through the gaps. The combined attack was devastating. The first collective cube exploded, its perfect form shattering into 1,000,000 pieces. But the other enemy ships were adapting, changing their defenses to counter the strategy. They're learning, Reed warned. Our attacks are becoming less effective. Good thing we didn't show them everything in the first round, Thompson replied, and Reed could hear the smile in his voice. Time for pattern, Sierra. Let's show them why humans don't believe in keeping all our eggs in one basket. The human fleet suddenly shifted tactics completely. Ships that had been using energy weapons switched to gravity attacks. Vessels that had been creating interference fields now launched what looked like clouds of metallic dust. Each ship seemed to have multiple weapon systems, and they were using all of them in constantly changing combinations. The collective works on logic and patterns, Thompson explained as he directed the battle. Their strength is analyzing and countering known strategies, so we don't give them patterns to analyze. We don't give them time to adapt. We just keep changing the rules of the game. A human ship near Reed's position launched what appeared to be a simple missile. The collective ignored it. Their defenses focused on the energy weapons they considered more threatening. The missile passed through their shields, then split into thousands of tiny devices that attached themselves to the cube's surface. Now, Thompson ordered. Every human and Concordat ship fired at once. The tiny devices amplified their weapons' power, and the combined attack tore the collective cube apart from inside. The remaining collective ships began to retreat, their perfect formations breaking apart for the first time. They had encountered something they couldn't analyze and counter quickly enough: human unpredictability combined with concordat power. As the enemy fleet disappeared back into their space-time ruptures, Reed realized he was shaking. His ship's tactical display showed the battle aftermath. Several concordat ships damaged or destroyed, but the human fleet had protected most of them. The humans had lost ships too, but their casualties were minimal thanks to their diverse defenses. That, Admiral White said into the silence that followed, is why the humans hide their true capabilities. Not because they're afraid or deceptive, but because surprise and adaptability are their greatest weapons. The collective wasn't ready for an enemy that could change strategies mid-battle. No, Thompson agreed. But more importantly, they weren't ready for two different civilizations working together. Your power and our adaptability. That's a combination they've never seen before. The Great Hall of the Concordat High Council had never seen anything like this before. Its ancient walls, covered in the history of 1,000,000 worlds, now watched as humans walked among the most powerful beings in known space as equals. Reed stood at attention as Admiral White and Captain Thompson signed the official alliance documents. The Machine Collective's attack had changed everything. In just one battle, humans had proven themselves not just advanced, but essential allies. Their ability to adapt and innovate mid-combat had saved countless concordat lives. Let the record show, the High Council leader announced, his voice echoing through the hall, that as of today, humanity is granted full membership in the Stellar Concordat, with all rights and privileges thereof. He paused, looking at the assembled crowd. And let the records also show that we have much to learn from our new allies. Thompson stepped forward, carrying a data crystal. As a gesture of trust, we bring gifts. Complete technical specifications for our adaptive shield technology, designs for our multi-phase engines, and most importantly, our methods for developing new technologies without relying on ancient foundations. The council leader accepted the crystal with visible excitement, and in return, we offer full access to our quantum sciences division, our faster-than-light communication networks, and our historical archives of all known civilizations. Reed watched as human and concordat scientists immediately gathered around display screens, already sharing ideas and theories. He overheard fragments of excited conversation about combining human innovation methods with concordat quantum mechanics. It's amazing, isn't it? Thompson said, walking up to Reed. 2 days ago, your people thought we were primitive. Now they're redesigning quantum theory with our scientists. Reed nodded. We were so focused on following the path of the ancient ones, we never considered there might be other ways forward. Your people showed us that sometimes the best way to advance isn't to follow old footsteps, but to make your own path. Speaking of paths, Thompson grinned, wait until you see what happens when we combine your quantum tunneling with our gravity manipulation. My engineers say we can increase your ship's speed by at least 300%. A junior officer rushed up to them, holding a datapad. Sir, the first results from the combined research teams. They've already developed a new type of defensive shield by merging our quantum field technology with human phase shift principles. That was fast, Reed remarked. Get used to it, Thompson laughed. Humans tend to get excited about new toys, especially when those toys can help protect people. Across the hall, Admiral White was deep in conversation with human fleet commanders, already planning joint defense strategies against the Machine Collective. The humans were sharing their battle tactics, while concordat strategists added their 1,000 years of experience in space warfare. You know what the best part is? Thompson said, watching the various groups working together. Neither of us has to change who we are. The Concordat can keep its traditions, its careful planning, its elegant quantum technology. We humans can keep experimenting, trying crazy ideas, and building ships that look like they were designed by creative children. Reed smiled at that. Your ships still look strange to me. And yours look unnecessarily pretty to us, Thompson replied. But that's the point. We're different. We think differently, build differently, fight differently. And that's exactly why we're stronger together. The council leader called for attention. Today marks more than just an alliance. Today we acknowledge a truth that we have forgotten. Progress doesn't come from following a single path. It comes from exploring all paths, from combining different ways of thinking, from being willing to learn even when the teachers don't look like teachers. He raised his hand toward the great window that showed the combined fleet outside. Sleek Concordat ships floating alongside the varied shapes of human vessels. Let all who see this understand. The stellar Concordat has entered a new age. Together with humanity, we will forge new paths among the stars. As cheers filled the hall, Reed looked at Thompson. I have to ask, did you plan all this? The way you revealed yourselves, how you showed your true strength, even the battle with the collective. Thompson shook his head. You can't plan everything, Commander. But you can be prepared for anything. That's the human way. Hope for the best, plan for the worst. And always, always be ready to improvise. Reed watched as human and Concordat children played together in one corner of the hall, the little ones already sharing games and stories from their respective worlds. The future, he realized, would be very different from the past. And that was exactly as it should be.